Hey y'all, it's me, Kim. So by now we know that I use YouTube to watch things that I probably don't need to be watching, but I am morbidly curious about literally everything. So we are going to watch the post-Cosby verdict press conference together. This is a couple of days old. It's already almost an old story because our news cycle is moving so freaking fast, but I still wanted to watch it. Forgive my tardiness. Let's go.
In a court of law of drugging.
Never expected you to see Mr. Cosby go to prison.
No one ever expects anything like this, but I want to say a few words, if that's okay. I believe and think it is important to point out that this has been the most racist and sexist trial in the history of the United States.
Wait a second. Whoa. The most racist and sexist trial in the United States. This is why we have to know our history. I immediately think of the Scottsboro boys, poor black kids. I believe this happened in the 1930s that were almost executed because of white folks' lies. That's not Bill Clinton. Also, you can't be sexist against men. Sorry, can't happen. Let's move on.
Dr. Cosby has been one of the greatest civil rights leaders in the United States.
Also, I object. So I know we've let Bill Cosby skate on using the honorific doctor for a long time. I do not believe that an honorary doctorate means that you get to be called doctor. Now, we let it slide because he was giving money to Spelman and Morehouse. But it's time for that to be over. You did not earn a doctorate. Thank you.
United States for over the last 50 years. He has also been one of the greatest educators of men and boys over the last 50 years. This was not pointed out to the jury or allowed in court because the racist and sexist mass media was attacking and denouncing.
What does that have to do with anything? I have questions. What does you paying for people's scholarships, which is a good deed? Thank you so much. I'm sure they're very grateful. But what does that have to do with whether or not you are a serial rapist? Here's the problem, you guys. I think we're having some difficulty with the idea that somebody can be an upstanding member of the community, that they can do good things, that they can be a philanthropist or a hell of a guy in the case of Brett Kavanaugh, that they can do those things and still be predators. Until we acknowledge the fact that people are multiple things, that you can be a great philanthropist and do great things for people and also hurt people, we are never going to get anywhere as a society. So, no, if I'm a judge, I'm like, what does your building at Spelman have to do with this? Nothing. And that's not sexism, and that's not racism. Get the hell out of here.
Denouncing Dr. Cosby whenever his lawyers even hinted there was racist and sexism present. All three of the psychologists who testified against Dr. Cosby were white women who make money off of accusing black men of being sexual predators. It is no...
Actually, I would have to look into it. Maybe there is something there. Listen, I am not going to ever deny the fact that there is a very fraught, complicated history of the sexual interactions between white women and black men. That is a real thing. It is a real thing. And I also know that black men, particularly poor black men, are consistently painted as sexual predators. But I think there is something very wrong and immoral about using that history to defend this man. I know that we can never divorce ourselves from the cultural context and the history completely, but we're talking about a ridiculously wealthy man who has dozens of accusers across decades. Now, come on now. No, that's why we don't believe you. Sorry.
Accident that the prosecutor still worked so close with anti-black and anti-male activist groups who tried to extort $100 million from Dr. Cosby in 2014 and continues to produce racist and sexist publicity against him through the 35 clients. What is going on?
You know what? It just dawned on me, right? This dude continuing to use the words racist and sexist together is another perversion of Black feminist theory. That's exactly what this is. In trying to invoke the idea that Bill Cosby is the victim of the intersection of his race and his gender, it is flipping Kimberly Crenshaw's theory in order to defend the sexual predator. How crazy and grotesque is that, right? I actually do believe that people who are Black and male face particular sorts of discrimination, right? I think that that's true. I'm comfortable with that. We're not going to do that to defend the person who sexually assaults people, and not just white people. In order to use the "this is racist and sexist" thing, we would have to erase what we all know from our public imagination, which is the fact that Bill Cosby's victims were not just white women. It wasn't just dozens of white women who came forward. There are also plenty of women of color, Black women and women of other races. So again, trying to make this into an intersectional battle is gross. It's grimy.
Going on in Washington today with Judge Kavanaugh is part of that sex war that Judge O'Neill, along with his wife, are a part of. Regarding the psychologist Kristen Dudley, she is a practitioner of mindfulness. This is an Eastern-inspired practice that is controversial in the field of psychology. I have noticed that a number of accused...
I missed it earlier when he was saying that we're in the middle of a sex war, and that's what we're seeing being played out with Judge Kavanaugh. That's how you know. That's how you know. Don't try to talk to me about sexism when you're saying that women coming forward about their sexual assaults is a part of a sex war. It is so interesting. Listen, I'm grossed out, but the wheels in my head are turning because I am so fascinated by how this stuff, this theory, these ideas get corrupted so easily. The way that the right appropriates ideas, the way that predators can appropriate these ideas that are actually supposed to be about social justice. They're supposed to be about liberation, but instead they're using them to defend the status quo. That is something else.
Also produced it, and I believe that AC and Judge O'Neill conspired with this. As you learned today, and we will prove that the DA of Montgomery County used falsified evidence against Dr. Cosby. During both trials, Mr. Steele introduced what he claimed was an accurate recording of conversations between Gianna Constant and Mr. Cosby. After recently being investigated by my associate, Ebony Benson, and her team, they found out that the tapes had been tampered with. about the tape that Gianna Constant played in the courtroom that she recorded Mr. Cosby on. Mr. Cosby retained a forensic expert to conduct analysis of the recording. The forensic expert has now confirmed that the tape was manipulated in 2 places. The expert, in her own words, concluded, without question, this is not an authentic recording. Mr. Cosby's defense team is preparing a motion to address Mr. Steele's use of falsified evidence. Mr. Cosby clearly has been denied his right to a fair trial. These injustices must be corrected immediately. Mr. Cosby doing great. Ebony Benson is going to read a statement from Mrs. Cosby.
I doubt Mr. Cosby is doing great. He's 81 and going to state prison, so maybe our ideas of great are different. They're probably a bit different. Probably not doing great, though. Also, Andrew Wyatt, no. Anyways, let's move on. Let's listen to what Camille Cosby has to say.
I got it. I'm here to read an official statement from Mrs. Camille O. Cosby concerning the prosecution's use of falsified evidence. The right to a fair trial is of utmost importance in the American justice system. Prosecutors, as administrators of justice, have a responsibility to protect the innocent and are prohibited from offering any evidence that is untrue. We have now learned and will prove that Bill Cosby was denied his right to a fair trial because the DA of Montgomery County, Kevin Steele, used falsified evidence against him. After being tipped off by a recent online publication that a tape recording Mr. Steele played during trial was doctored, Mr. Cosby retained a forensic expert to conduct an audio authenticity analysis of the recording. Gianna Constant, the mother of Andrea Constant, had surreptitiously and illegally made the recording of Mr. Cosby in 2005 without his knowledge or consent. That recording was provided to Bruce Castor while he was DA of Montgomery County. Mr. Castor determined that Gianna Constant's surreptitious recording constituted a potential felony under Pennsylvania's law, which required Ms. Constant to obtain Mr. Cosby's consent to the recording. Years later, in 2014, Kevin Steele beat Mr. Castor for DA by unethically attacking him for not prosecuting my husband. He thereafter used the illegal recording in both trials, claiming that it was an authentic recording of the 2005 conversation. Mr. Steele relied heavily on the recording in both trials, ultimately convincing the jury in the second trial to return a verdict of guilty. Earlier this month, on September 12, 2018, an online publication reported that a Montgomery County court official who requested anonymity had revealed that the original recording made by Gianna Constant was doctored and contained information that would exonerate Mr. Cosby.
Okay. Camille, do we think Camille is complicit? Do you think Camille Cosby has known about all of this stuff going on? Surely she knew that he was having affairs, scare quotes. But do you think she knew that he was out here raping? Doesn't matter now, because now she is defending him vigorously. She's going to now be protector of the assets. But on the other hand, I do feel, Camille Cosby got married when she was 19. This is a woman in her 70s. I don't know. I have very complicated Camille Cosby feelings. I can't work them out. Can't work through them now, but let's move on.
The defense team immediately sent its copy of the recording to a forensic expert who, after extensive analysis, has unequivocally concluded, quote, This is not a true representation of the original content or conversation. Without question, this is not an authentic recording, end quote. At no time before or during the trial did the DA disclose that the recording was inauthentic, much less that it had been falsified. After the media report surfaced on September 12th, Montgomery County detectives acknowledged and confirmed to the defense team that they could not authenticate the recording and did not know who made the original recording. Mr. Cosby's defense team will be filing a motion seeking immediate relief for the prosecution's use of this falsified evidence. The DA's use of this falsified audio clip at trial is deeply prejudicial, yet it represents just one of many issues that resulted in the denial of Mr. Cosby's right to a fair trial. These egregious injustices must be corrected. Thank you.
Mr. Cosby's doing great, and Mr. Cosby knows that God is watching over him. He knows that these are lies. They persecuted Jesus, and look what happened. Not saying Mr. Cosby is Jesus, but we know.
No, you didn't. No, nigga. And you know, I use that word very sparingly on the YouTube. But come on now. No, you didn't. First of all, they persecuted Jesus. Everybody knows. Anybody who's gone to church knows that Negroes only pull that out when they know they're wrong. Stop it. Stop it.
You know what this country has done to black men for centuries. So Mr. Cosby's doing fine. He's holding up well. And everybody who wants to say anything negative, you're a joke as well. Thank you. Did you say?
No, Andrew, you're the joke. Sorry, your professional reputation is never. Andrew's, by you, clearly I'm speaking to Andrew right now as if he was right here. Andrew's professional reputation is forever going to be tainted by this. Good luck with that.
Sexual assault women, Michael. Thank you.
Well, that was certainly something. That was certainly something. It was a thing. Certainly. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. If you want to get in contact with me, leave a comment. I do read them even if I don't reply for my mental health. Send me an email, message me, find me on Twitter or Instagram at Kimberly N, as in Nicole Foster. If you like what we do here, sign up for our Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. Thank you guys so much. Bye.